Okay. Guys, I apologize if it can go wrong with tech, it'll go wrong with me. I appreciate Jacob and Mark's patience with me earlier, but um everything Jacob said, I'm about to send him a check for those compliments, but I forward all those compliments back to him. All the guys in the Flexmont community, y'all are awesome. I've been out of coaching for the last few years, as any of you guys on Telegram know. When COVID was really shutting things down, it opened some doors for me and my wife, especially my wife, and it's led to a different job for me, which has been a blessing at this point in my life. In an AD role back at Parkview Baptist, where I ran Flexbone for 20 years. It's kind of odd. It's a great place, great people. That's why I was interested in going back. And I always served in some administrative AD roles before, even when I was coaching. So it was a natural progression for me, and I enjoy it because I get to see athletics from a totally different angle um, and perspective. And it's really helped me in that way to have a deeper appreciation for all the sports, boy, girl, from grades fifth through 12th. We have a big campus of athletics, and it's broadened my horizon, so to speak, athletically. So I do miss football, especially, kind of live through you guys on the Telegram and stuff like this. But I really appreciate Jacob putting this on. I know there's a lot of moving parts when you want to host a clinic. We used to do some in person, and virtually it's the same chores, just in a different way. And I agree with Mark. It's one of the many good things of one of the few good things, I guess you could say, of COVID is that. So, guys, since I've been out of coaching, I would say there's three things I really spend a lot of time thinking about, and I still love the flex bone. I'm on some guys huddle, and I look at it often whenever I can, whenever some of these other sports aren't just eating my soul away slowly. Um, but I think about game planning in the flex bone, not just against base fronts, but very unusual fronts that I see people have to face. Play calling, and then the short pistol. I'm not going to talk about short pistol night because I'm not the guy, but I love a lot of things about it. I tinkered with it about 10, 12 years ago. We got back under center and kept winning, so I couldn't justify getting back to it. But those three areas I spent a lot of time thinking about. So tonight I want to talk about, when Jacob reached out, is play calling. Toward the end of my coaching, I had evolved to a lot of different things just because I'm not smart enough to call plays off the cuff. And I wanted to have ways to get our kids into the best situation. So, but to do that, I'm the type that the way my mind works, I work better if I kind of build you a clock before I tell you what time it is. I want to go through some offensive structure stuff because to me it's all related to actually play calling. I agree with this slide 110%. Greatest inspiration for me for innovation, it usually comes out of desperation. And, when your back's against the wall, you got to, face somebody that's really hard to beat, almost shouldn't beat them. That's when you do your best work if you're a competitor. Whatever my few coaching beliefs, I guess, since I've been out of coaching and kind of put some thought into this, you guys that are head coaches, man, I admire you. I never really gave much thought to being a head coach. My first couple years in high school coach, I said, there's no way I'd want to be a head coach. I was at a big 5A school in Lake Charles, and the head coach was just stressed all the time and doing a lot of things that were not football. And I'm like, I'm coaching football because I love the game of football, not because I love fundraising or uh, academics and all the stuff that he had to check on with grades with those type of kids. But um, I've been offered head jobs before. I've interviewed for head jobs, but as long as I got to be a coach, was assistant coach or coordinator in a program that I believed in the direction we were going, especially with the flex bone, then I was much better off doing that and being a great assistant for whoever I work for than being probably a below average head coach. So, but these are my few coaching philosophies that I believe in, that there's no job too big, no job too small. If you have a bunch of people around you that believe like that, kids and coaches, I think you got a chance to do great things. Unfortunately, these days I see fewer and fewer people think this way. I think you're better off without a coach than with a bad one. And a bad one to me is not one that's inexperienced or lacks knowledge. You can be fresh and green. It's one that really is just not on board with what you're doing, especially with the flex bone, or one that kind of pulls against the common good. It has nothing to do with age or experience or knowledge. And in football, I think everything matters You as a coach have to figure out what matters first. Before I get to play calling, I'm gonna go really fast through a lot of these slides, but I want to touch on a lot of things. As coach, I heard Coach Saban say at the Alabama Clinic one year, he expects his assistant coaches to put 10 pounds of crap into a 5 pound bag every time they talk. So there's going to be a lot of stuff, but I'm going to go fast. If you go get everything you want and you know what you're going to get defensively, whether you script plays or you can just call them that great, and you never experience what I call play caller's regret, then this is probably a waste of your time. And you can go, watch a rerun or go on to bed because I'm not going to help you. But I look at offensive structure a lot as building a house. Your philosophy is where you want to live, in the neighborhood you want to live in, and then your foundation is your core plays, and then the walls and the roof, and then all the other stuff complements those, and how you get to that. For me, real quick, guys, my first 3 years in coaching, I was a mixed bag on offense. I knew some football, got a chance to be just bad enough to play what we called 1AA back then, FCS level at McNeese State. And during that time, as a kid and growing up into college, is where I think my philosophy offensively was being formed. I didn't even know it. I grew up loving the Alabama wishbone, and Jacob's an Alabama guy, and I think that's probably why we have a good friendship, even though I'm several generations older than him. Is I can appreciate, and now as a coach, looking back on why Barry Bryant went to the wishbone, why Barry Switzer went to the wishbone during that time, and Texas was kind enough to share it with him. It was amazing. I think all option guys have always been great sharers of material, even if it turns around to bite them in the butt. But I love the physical brutality, but also the finesse, uh, and the poetry of the wishbone all at the same time, if that makes sense. And then years later, when I was in college, there's this FCS 1AA school winning national championships every year I'm in college. I'm just glad we never had to play them in just Georgia Southern. And they were running out of what I would call a run and shoot formation because that's the only thing I knew of at that time that were in that double slot. So ironically, this is Georgia Southern in that 2011 game against Bama where they ripped through them and nobody else could get probably a first down against that Bama defense. So this early on formed my philosophy. And as far as and that's kind of how I learned the flex bone my first year, I learned it in a wishbone sense from Coach Ballard's last playbook, I guess you say, when he was coaching in Houston. And then we evolved it to the flex bone formation and all the things that I've learned over the years from guys like y'all and Telegram and spending time with coaches and making it what we see today. For me, I think there's a lot of flexibility in the flex bone that people don't give it credit for. Just a few things that I think there's more than one way to do it. Coach Wheaton said it best. There's a lot of ways to be good in this offense. I'll run some non-traditional plays, our stance and alignment. We run out of a core huddle, our signal cheats, a lot of things that I don't mind doing if it makes us better. Still with the flexbone foundation, but with a lot of flexibility. I do think this day and age, if you're going to run the flexbone, you have to be, and I was with our skill guys every offseason. I was, you know, very proactive, especially with our skill players, on why we did what we did. And I don't like to use the phrase buy-in. I like to use the phrase belief, and try to develop belief. This is why we do it, and this is what we believe in. And these are just some typical myths, perceptions, and disputes that I've come up with over the years. And look, guys, y'all don't have to write anything down if you were even tempted to. I'll send you anything I have. But the bottom line I kind of gave to this point is a simplified perception that yards are yards, a points are points, a win's a win in football. And I know people don't see it that way. They want it to be aesthetically pleasing and all that crap. If you look at the college football playoff scores, when two teams were fairly evenly matched and they're both beasts, man, it was a race to 24. It wasn't no 40, 45, and 50s, I'm not talking about the mismatches. I'm talking about the evenly matched games. And that to me tells me that, you're going to face teams that are as good or better than you, and what gives you the best chance to do that. I'm not going to insult any of you guys' intelligence as to why you run the flex bone. We've covered those things. And again, you can have anything I have. I'll be glad to send you this. And from an old ex-quarterback coach perspective, I like a good passing game, but I like winning more. So do the fans and your players. So, for what it's worth, I always try to focus our offensive pillars on some measurables that were not statistically or efficiently coefficient and all that based. It's basically simple. do what we can to score one more. And stats can often lie, be misleading. We focus on what I call TNTs, the take no talents, and everything we did was based off of measuring that in the course of a game and a season. So efficiency, stats, analytics, play percentage, and quotas, all those things are great. And if they help you and your players, guys, then just tell me to shut up. But I never saw a connection that I could make. I remember in college we had a big goal board, just like a lot of people do. And I'm not down on anybody that does that. I think they look great. But when I look up there and we won and half of them aren't checked, or we lost and nearly all of them are checked, that's a mixed message. And I want it, I felt like we could always make a correlation to the TNTs to winning and losing by how well we played, by missed assignments, uh, uh, subjective penalties, or excuse me, objective penalties, pre-snap, post-play, dumb penalties. Holding is always going to be very subjective and things like that. And that's what we try to focus on with our players. I'll say blocking and execution, man. I know that sounds overly simplified. When I first got into the wishbone, I was a slots coach. That was my first position. And then a few years later, I took a job briefly and coached wide receivers in the flex bone. Those 2 years was two of the most meaningful years of my life because it taught me the value and the emphasis on blocking. I mean, I'm gonna tell you, we blocked our ass off. We got called when I coached receivers, we got called for one holding penalty in the whole season, and it was in a playoff game. And I could tell we had a different crew, and it was on the far sideline. And the next time there was a timeout, I wasn't the head coach, obviously, and I told these guys, look, they're going to try to talk you into a holding call because that's what they see receivers do. They don't put much effort into it. I said, our guys block well, they don't hold. And I said, don't let them talk you into something that doesn't exist. It is possible to maintain a long block in high school without holding on the perimeter, and we were trying to be really, really good at it. So I just think you have to, and I used to praise those guys. I mean, just magnify them because they weren't getting a lot of catches. They weren't getting a lot of attempts. And I think that's imperative to do that. So offensive foundations, structural beliefs, starting to get into building the house, I believe in minimized schemes and maximal flexibility. I say 5 + 2 = 3, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. Foundational details before you get to plays. Ideal install progression. If you had a true off season with your players, this would go out the window if I took a job as a coordinator, or God forbid, a head coach in July. Then I'd have to think about, okay, what would I do with a freshman team or a middle school team to where we can just at least function and run plays. But this would be ideal. We get into our personnel by coaches and personnel in our players. I think once you start to teach football to your players, you want them to be IQ high and be intentional about it. People talk a lot about football verbiage. How do you know, uh, teach teach the verbiage to the players? My wife tell me all the time when she hear me talk football with coaches, like, it's English, but it sounds like an English foreign language. The context of word usage is really weird. Well, it's the same thing for kids. If they didn't grow up around football and grow up in a coach's house, then the football terms are not going to make sense to them. So we were very, very intentional on offense of what things meant. And then we also coded words so that we could have a lot of flexibility for things at the line of scrimmage. So offensive verbiage, I don't think there's one way, one right way, and one wrong way to call plays or use for play language. Some talk about one word play calls and all that. We were a combination of words and numbers to get what we wanted and for flow and flexibility. But either way, there's always going to be a learning curve that the players have to learn. So just again, this is installing the offense with the players. We teach them about the run game, the points of attack, how we letter gaps and number gaps, launch points in the passing game, position lettering. This is our offense. We're building our house on what these kids need to know. Core huddle. We evolved to this over the years. If my first year in the flex ball, I wouldn't know what you're talking about. I was, like I said, an old ex-quarterback, and I was always around linemen, which I loved, and I was always around receivers, which I hated because they're always open and they're full of crap. And they can usually be the most toxic players on your team, and in high school is no different. I went to this after a year of full no huddle. I said, we're losing some elements of being in huddle. So we went to what I call a core huddle. Our receivers stayed split. So I got the most negative guys out of the huddle, but we also saved learning and legs for these guys. And they have their own signal communication because their game is simple. Believe it or not, as far as wide receivers have to know less than linemen and backs, they're still usually sometimes the most hard-headed football players as far as learning what to do. So we kept them out. Like I said, we can huddle with all 11 at times, but this was a really good communication method for us. And I love if I started coaching again tomorrow, I would do it. We were all signals, and there's a lot of debate about signals or wishbands. If you're going to communicate this way, and believe me, signals were by far the best thing for us. We found more ways to use them and cheat with them, last second calls, give players helpful hints when they are blowing an assignment. Then we move on to formations. Again, still building our house. Obviously, the ace starting point is where we start. If you told me tomorrow, coach, you can only have one formation the rest of your life, and you can start coaching again, there it would be, no doubt about it. Everything stemmed from that. You got four receivers and four backs in the same formation. Um, we talk about our splits. Again, we're teaching our alignment, which we're probably a little more like Mark, 2.5. We were wishbone theory in our splits and alignment because of the way I learned it. But we obviously integrated flexbone components and other parts after a visit to Air Force in the mid 90s whenever they had transitioned from wishbone. But we were a little more up on the ball than a lot of modern flexbone guys, and we were a little tighter splits because we comboed block. That's why I asked Mark about comboing that four earlier. Cadence and motion, just like a lot of teams, motion is very important. It's got to be tied to your cadence. You're very rhythmic, but you also have to change ups because you're going to make the defense rhythmic as well. Three core motion triggers, normal, early and late, just like Mark said, D trigger, R trigger. But I think the key to motion with all this is something Cody said the other night. Motion's a big part of the offense. I think you need no mo plays. I think you need counter mo plays. I think you need full mo plays. Plays away from motion, need false motion. When Coach Wheaton and them run mid triple with fly motion away, that's what I call fly motion. It is a thing of beauty when they catch rotating safeties. It is just like stealing. It's unbelievable. I don't get the last few years I coached, I didn't get safeties chasing like that, but I kept my finger on the trigger. I couldn't wait to do that to somebody. Then we start teaching defense. We actually start teach defenses before we teach plays. And I think that's important because once you start teaching plays, we're teaching rules. And we're teaching rules in context of all the key defenders from inside out and low to high. And we always talk, chalk, walk, step, rep, and work in context of defenders. So anytime we're teaching a play, repping a play, stepping and fetching to a play, we're going to have something there, barrels, bags, bodies. They're never going to do this on air. The only thing we might ever do on air is work some kind of timing component with the backs or receivers that are just starting from scratch and we don't need any obstacles. But before applying rules, we're going to do that. And one of the best ways I found teaching quarterback defenses is this view, end zone view. What's front? Call it. Assume he's zero. The big ass right above the center. He's zero. Call it front. And there's 1 of 5. He better get me. And why? So he's got an indicator down the cylinder and he goes from there. Um, so I'm not going to go through all the fronts, guys, but we have basic indicators each front. We also teach techniques like everybody else. I don't know that we always get our guys memorizing these. I agree with Cody with the 6 eye for the tight end. I think I wasn't raised that way, but I agree with that a lot more than the old 6, 7, 9 Bear Bryant. Um, anyway, but we definitely talk about tight and wide. Wide tech check, tight tech check. When it comes to secondary, we talk about shells and dells. I stole Dell's acronym from Coach Wheaton, death eyes and leverage at the corner. So that's how we communicate, one shell off. That's would be one safety got off corners. Our communication of that. We teach stunts before we teach plays. So when we teach plays, guys, we want these players with their eyes and their awareness of who can threaten them the quickest. We call it fastball football. Who can do the worst thing and the hardest thing to them? And that's teaching fastball football. So then we get into plays, core run and pass games. Again, this is how we're built. 5 + 2 = 3. Um, I'm not a mistake. There's not 5 - 2 because 5 + 2 = 3 could have 5 core runs, 2 protections, gives us 3 total scheme families. Something I stole from Coach Kelly Lee, who I think the world of. I love his philosophy on offense and the way he does a lot, but it's not a lot to his kids. I don't believe. three total scheme families, and we do a lot out of it. So everything that we pretty much run can be tied to one of these three schemes. I like to group our plays in the categories of five: core, complements, connector, creators, and crossovers. We won't talk a lot about any one of those really. Um, when you get ready to install a play, parts of a play, the philosophy of the play, our beliefs and our research, obviously the rules, we're going to be rule based in everything we do. When we talk about, hey, what do you have on this? Don't tell me him. I got number 35. No, you better tell me your rule. I got second down lineman from inside out. I'm in a slice technique. I'm chipping the nose to backside backer. Whatever the rule is, we can tag the play to expand the value and ability of it. Play protection, not pass protection, play protection. That's what I'm going to talk about in just a minute, is play systems, way that we can really protect the value of a play and give it flexibility so we're not locked into a bad play potentially. And then the verbiage needs to connect to the rest of the offense seamlessly. If you saw my play sheet, which is always a jumbled mess, is work in progress, you would say, Coach, y'all really do all that? But it's all connected to three schemes, and our players don't feel like it's a lot. And here we are. What's the fine line when too much or not enough as so when talking about adding something, how does it fit? Where do we need it? Can we verbalize it to fit seamlessly with the O-line and skill position into existing schemes and action? I met Cody a couple years ago at Hardy. I think I'd met him before that up there, and we were just having a general conversation, watching practice outside, and he made a comment. He goes, "Just look like y'all do a lot of stuff on offense, or you did." And I said, I always want to have enough for the bad guys because there was teams that we shouldn't have beaten that I wanted to give our kid a chance, but I had to make it fit because we were one platoon. And so it wasn't like I had a ton of time with them. And these kids are learning defense and special teams too. So uh, I thought we did maximize our use of those schemes, which is one of my core philosophies. When we get ready to stall the plays after all that, we start with our two triples, mid and veer, most expensive. And once they learn these plays, it helps everything else to fall in place easier, I believe, because you can't cheat. They have to learn the defenses to really install that play from a blocking standpoint, from a read standpoint, to an inside fit, to a perimeter execution. And I think that's key. Also, when we teach the triples, we're teaching key option terminology that we will use in other contexts besides just an option play. So those are helpful. I want to say this about the passing game. I think it's important in the install, and again, we're talking ideal install here, to get to the passing game early because kids feel the importance of it. Split in wide receiver morale. Deep down, I could give a shit about wide receivers and how they feel. But on a team, it does matter. We want those guys to feel like we put emphasis on it enough to keep them excited about the chances to make big plays for the offense. Ideally, we'd want to throw when we want to. We all do. Even spread teams want to throw on their terms, but we must be able to throw when we need to, and I wholeheartedly believe in that. And when you look at the flex bone, I just took three clips. Like, man, that's 11 on 11 views right there. They're all in the box or up close, and so that's great opportunities to throw the football. And they're not really pressuring you from a pass rush standpoint. So the advantage is pre-snap to throw the football or something that resonates with anybody who values the passing game. And like I said, an OX quarterback does do that. I think Mark's an old ex quarterback. I saw him running the option one day in 2020 on a Zoom conference just like this. And I'll never forget that some of our best meetings were done when nobody was doing nothing. I think where flexball coaches sometimes get into a rut, and I worked for a couple of them. They were great guys, but they really wanted to go through a game or a season without attempting to pass if they could. I'm not built that way. I don't. I look to win first, and I also recognize the opportunity to throw when it's there. Um, but we've all won games without attempting or completing a pass, as weird as that sounds in today's football. Um, but I've also been a part of games that we either won or had a chance to win because we could throw the football when we needed to. And I think it's important. I'm going to talk about concepts of pack. I want to, for so getting to the personnel planning and practice of I think it's important to keep in mind that the bar of expectation in our preparation is how can we be the best we can be in order to beat the best we will see. Our bar of expectation was always a couple of teams on our schedule that we may see in the playoffs or even further. And it wasn't the teams that you can probably show up without practicing beating. It was the better teams. And each week we needed to be prepared to fire all our bullets, personnel wise. We always wanted to fix us first in preparation for a game. 19 players ready, and that's key personnel and key backups. But we always work two groups at everything. We were going to plan and predict about the defense we may see. I call it DNA in the defense. And then practice. Our practices were very consistent, focus on what we expect, but still prepare for it all. We never huddled in practice. That helped get more reps and also helped with our communication. For game planning, guys, I think that's an exaggerated term for me. It's really more scout and report, put together information for our kids about ourselves and our opponent. Um, and having answers to problems were very ready to go. Very rarely, if somebody said, "Man, y'all had a great game plan tonight." It's like, well, maybe they didn't because I called plays off of what they were doing. So I didn't put in a bunch of new plays for this team. I never did that. I had things ready and maybe a wrinkle here or there that I thought would be effective, but it was not a wholesale thing. Practices, we always viewed it in three types: spring, preseason, in season. Each one had their I guess you could say category or things that we focused on. I would say this that in order to be effective at practice and spring ball, and I know Alabama has it too, even in middle school, which is great. We needed to have our basic offensive foundation, snap and mesh, and basic motion be in place to be a productive practice. Otherwise, we need to probably just be insider in shorts, just walking through, which is two different things. When we were on the practice field in pads of some type, I wanted us to be moving. Our drills and segments need to be, man, they need to be packed with a lot. They need to be power packed. One platoon drills and segments must be multifunctional drills that check several fundamental boxes from the time the cleats hit the field to the team segment. And we wanted to get a lot for a little because, like I said, we were one platoon. Even our warm-up drills had fundamental purposes. And that's just two examples of a warm-up drill our fullbacks did with nobody with them. It's just called the shoots and boards where they're just running mesh. They're even calling out the cadence. That's how I wanted everybody, all our kids, to be able to be rhythmic with the cadence. And then a drill I called all in one in the lower right. I'm not going to talk much about any one of those. Um, I will say this about passing game install. It's hard to do on the board. It's hard to do when you're really heavy on the run game. Why does the Flexbone team do 7-on-7, guys? I can't tell you how valuable that was. We didn't get into the tournament or travel 7-on-7 stuff. If some of our kids did it on their own, that's fine. Good competition work. But we did it for our defense, but we also did it because it gave great time. And we still ran Flexbone formations. We didn't just get in the gun and go empty and have fun with it like PE. We Flexbone formations. We worked on our communication, our 2 month. I look at the coaches in 7-on-7, the other teams say, y'all mind if we go no huddle and kind of go fast? That's good work for you too. So a great time to do that. And if you can throw the ball effectively somewhat, in a setting to where all they don't have to worry about your run game, I think you're going to get better at throwing the football. So all that being said, when you get to the point where you're ready to call plays and all your bullets are ready to fire, play calling to me is the most difficult, analyze, scrutinize, criticize aspect of coaching because of ever-changing variables from play to play. It can be a very lonely world, but you don't let it become this if possible. Let it be more of a group project, a lot of safety nets and guardrails built in, a lot of challenges to calling plays, and there's layers to it. I'll say this about, I think play calling helped me to realize this a few years ago. All offenses are looking for the same thing: wing T, split back veer, flex bone, spread, gun run, single wing. Maybe not single wing. That's a little different. It's more of a goal line offense. I love it, but it's more of a caveman approach. They're looking for the good grass, the path of least resistance, some type of numbers advantage, some type of angle, bubble, or leverage, whether it's inside the box or on the perimeter, space unoccupied or available pre or post snap. And they're looking for personnel matches, run game, pass game. I like to say Willie or Waldo. Willie's being that stud that you don't want to mess with. Willie's always been a good football player in my world. Waldo's that weak sister. You want to find him. Conflict defenders. Defensive look, something specific to a 50, something specific to a one high look, whatever it may be. But how the offenses attack these elements are differently. Some do's and don'ts for play calling. Two play caller questions for everybody. Have you ever called a play that you didn't have the ability to fix or change once you saw the defensive lineup and that play didn't have a chance for success? That's what I would call play caller remorse. Second question, um, after calling a play that didn't succeed, would you still call that play based on the same information that you were given or had available? If not, what's broken? And sometimes what broken is I didn't have a way to get out of it without calling timeout. And that to me is where I grew as a play caller. I felt like by having more checks and balances in places. Um, I never want a play to be unsuccessful by something we can change pre-snap or that we can control. The play itself, the call, the check, the choice, change or confirm the play, the side of the play, the scheme of the play, all those things we have control over. So the subjective world of how to call plays, what guys play call thoughts going into a game, guys, game prep, thoughts about the opponent, what you know about the opponent, seeing the defense pre-snap, post-snap, who is the defense, where's Willie and Waldo. Our coaching eyes and common communication is huge. Video sideline, players feedback, question mark. Sometimes that can be vague because they're playing in their little cube, their little box. So that may not be very helpful. You need bigger eyes. Sometimes we'll get into a new formation. Somebody's doing something different on defense, and you might find an old fish in honey hole where we want to take advantage of that now. I don't want to waste a play, a possession, a period, or half a football to take advantage of something we are getting, or that's a freebie, or to fix something we didn't expect. We want to take advantage now. I know Coach Wheaton and them's kind of play calling excuse me, rubric. They start with a play, the rule, the tag, the formation, mix of all the above, different schemes that complement it, identify the problem, know the fix. My only question with this, and I understand it, is do we have enough time or possession in high school football to always follow this progression? Sometimes, man, you may get four possessions and a half if it's a running, quick game. So I need to find what works now, even if it's not a core option play. Coaches' eyes and communication. I think this is something you should practice with your coaches. What would you tell me? Put on a film and say, what would you say now? When would you say it? How would you say it? And get good at that. And I think offensive coaches have an ownership. Train and develop your offensive coaches to be on the same page are huge. Different types of play calls that come up in my mind of how I would categorize them. So play calling and analytics, I know that's a big thing these days. I don't understand enough to have an educated view. I'll say this, any decision based on past results that cannot consider the variables that you're facing in a moment is hard for me to put a lot of value in because they're not feeling the momentum of the game, the weather of the game, the matchup where that three tech over there is a lot better or worse than you thought. So we are a call it as we see it team, or I'm going to call it as I see it coach. And I think self-scouting tendencies are great if they help you. I didn't put much value in it because it's like whatever tendencies I have from that game were only because of what you were doing. It wasn't because it was pre-scripted, and I hope that makes sense. I'm just going to say this about tempo. Tempo helps play calling because anything that you can do to change the rhythm of your offense, how fast you get to line, champ snap count, you're just confirming the look. And as long as you can confirm the look, then you can call or get to what you want based off the look because you're making them uncomfortable with change of tempo. And I'm a big believer in that. So this is the nuts and bolts of this. Play systems, what I call safe systems, ways to protect your plays. Ask any coach this question: how do you protect what's your favorite play? How do you protect? Example, what you call four verts. We love four verts. What you get quarters coverage. You're running right into coverage. I mean, so and if you have an answer for this, man, you're me and you can go eye to eye because that's how I see it. As a young coach, my motivation to get better at this, I hated to fill in and film after a game with a bunch of 15, 16, 17-year-old guys that I didn't have an answer to a defensive problem in the moment for that play call. I want to give every play call the best chance. I give defenses a lot of credit for potential problems, at least a maximum preparation for answers to problems. Uh, One of our head coaches at Parkview used to tell me, he's like, man, I used to hate to click over and hear you on the headsets because I got confused. He said, y'all just talking like all this stuff. And it's like, well, we're talking the same language. We understand it. And because we're all just kind of helping guide the ship in the same direction. It just takes a lot of moving parts to do that. And that we're all seeing the same thing or thinking we are. Bottom line is play systems is to have the chalk last and give sometimes our kids having this chalk class. I think keywords activate one, and the system has to be worked every day in practice. So that's our modes. I call them look, check, packages, schemes, alert, alarms, and then combined system automatics. I never got into them where you just give a kid a loaded gun and say, hey, anytime you get this, you can do that. We did have semi-automatics where we told him that, but he still had to look over. So look over, it's nothing new. I stole it from spread guys, seeing them do it. It's like, how can we implement that into the flex bone? Basically, look, we can in look mode, we can call, confirm, check, change, and correct plays at the line of scrimmage late and quickly due to skill signals and core translation. So all the verbiage and the signals that we've taught and laying the foundation give us a chance to use it during this system. The more coach can, and guys, I don't have film, so I don't want to waste your time. This was all just content. But the more that I, as a coach, can look, and you guys are the same way, can look over defense, the more they let us without looking over themselves and changing, the less we have to put that decision on quarterbacks or players. So here's an example, and this is the closest thing I'll get to film. And what triggers a system is kind of what you're saying, and just communicate, hey, coach, they're at 4-2, but they're not always balancing up. Here's a good look. So, hey, let's go ace look. I just want to see what they're in. They're not looking over when we look over. That's the free safety cheated to the field, 4-2 box. Hey, man, not only are they giving us numbers to the boundary, but they're giving us angles. So quickly, boom, in a matter of a split second, we can run triple option, which is 5 for us. So next thing we run 5 into the boundary, we get a pull, we crack the quarter safety, we isolate the corner for pitch. And I don't have video right there, but the quarterback actually, he slow played us and the quarterback took it to the house. Here's another look. We're playing this team. They got into a totally different defense. So I don't know what their adjustments are because I didn't expect this defense. So we get into end over the first time early in the game. It's called Roger. End over set Mark talked about. And they brought the rover over an 8-man front, 4-2 box, and they cheated the free. All they got to the nub boundary is the corner. So boom, he's looking to the sideline. We called, and our coaches over there say, Coach, all we got is one support and an in. All right, let's go rocket toss, which for us is 9. And we can actually go 9 cross, which is X block it to make the in constrict because we don't have an extra hat in the alley when the guard pulled. And there's our slot going down the sideline. So that's how quickly we got to it. We ran 9. So that's just a couple of examples. We can get to the passing game that way. Look, we can, sometimes I'll call 4 verticals, expecting 1 high, and I'll call it, ace 85 Viking look. He's got a play call. Everybody's in the 85 Viking mode. He looks. Might do it after freeze. A lot of these things are done after freeze. Boom, I think it's 1 high. Let's roll with it. Boom. They're not changing. I can see that from the press box, maybe a lot better than my 16-year-old quarterback can do. So checks. Anytime we put the quarterback in the check mode, he has a progression, numbers, angles, as called, or personnel, not always nag. I don't necessarily get into that G part of it. I use called, or if there's a personnel component like Willie or Waldo, we may build into that week. Here's another team out of 4-2 box that did not balance to our balance. Again, I don't mind running to the boundary. One thing about running the boundary when you're not necessarily and always a fast team, it makes your backs get vertical faster. They realize they're running out of gas. They don't stretch it. And if you can't outrun people a lot, stretching it to the field is not your friend. Boundary and vertical is. So, boom, we called ace check zero base arc, which is a mid double pitch. Okay, where we're not, it's like midline double, but it's a pitch phase instead of an insert for the quarterback. Zoom. He's checking it to the boundary, or he can op it. I may have called it to the boundary expecting this, and the quarterback sees it, he's good. He don't have to change anything. We do go to the line with a play call. So quick pull, isolate the end. You can see the bonus hat, the free safety, cheated way to the field. We got an arc and a runoff, like Mark said, man demeanor, man eyes. He's following that receiver. We got an arc with isolate the end. I mean, that's Emery Ballard Wishbone, a football offensive optimist, a hat on the hat with a ball carrier and on the perimeter and in the box. I mean, and we pitched it and took it to the house. Um, so here's checks again. Now, talk about why we do put some things on the players, and it's important that they're able to do some of these checks and things and not just a look. Because the look over mode is an easy mode to just want to live on, but I don't always have the view that the kids have. So right here near the goal line, this is the exact view I have. The camera's right next to me. I can't tell you what those inside shades are. We're in end over Roger. I know they're man for man out here, but I can't tell you. I want to run mid double. I called Roger check 10. Quickly, the quarterback realizes, hey, man, there's 3 down hats, a backer, and a walked up safety. I got a 3 tech and in the backer. He's going to the wide tech and to the number. So great check by him. He oppoed this call.
We go hats on the head for that, just so the receivers know, especially important if it's a perimeter play. But we do this sometimes as a dummy as well. And we do get a pull, and there's a quarterback walking in the end zone. So, again, from the view I had, that was a disaster waiting to happen. Typically, I will call it where I think it is, with the ability to check it the other way, or I'll usually call it strong sometimes, and we check it weak. All right, now play packaging is just what it sounds. You got the ability to get to two or more choices within a pre-described menu. This is what I would call Leo, tight end over or heavy tackle over. Best five. Now, this is some outside veer stuff, and I love what Mark talked about outside veer. The way I learned triple and the way I've kind of incorporated over the years is I try to get inside and outside veer in one play, one mesh. We just cheat the crease with the fullback, but you got to have the right splits to do that. Otherwise, you do get into a different mesh point, and that's a whole different topic. This is the quarterback view, or excuse me, my view from the top left. And what we do to get to outside veer is that our normal dive key, which is number two down lineman, is cheated on the tackle with the alignment of a third man. We can get to an outside veer play. We don't have to. We can do other things. We can read our way out, which would be probably a quick pull pitch. Don't mind that. But in this view, the quarterback view on the lower right down here, that second down lineman sure as hell's cheated onto the tackle. That's a great outside veer crease. We're going to combo that second down lineman to the backer, or gap it if he walks up, and read that stand up on the outside. And so we call that reduce, by the way. That look is what we call reduce, and we have a word to get us that. Easy read, there goes number 42, the fullback. He's one on one with the free safety. Another package that I built in several years ago for our state championship game with the team, and we were fortunate to play in the Superdome a few times. And I can just tell you, communication sometimes leaves a lot to be desired in that building, and also the speed of it. Official crews go fast sometimes. So I put in a three-way triple check out of end over for the quarterback. He could go, this is tight end over to the offense's left. He could go best version of triple, veer triple that is, whether it's plain or red, or he could go mid triple to the nub. In this case, he felt like, out of that 50 look, he had mid, we're going to run a slice. We're going to read that four, pitch off 24, and arc 18. The backside safety's got to run. And there it is right there. That was a big play for us, and we were going about to pin that back over with the tackle. The slot's like an arc 24. That's our pitch key, and going to arc number 18. So we went to mid triple, and he mixed it up during the game. This is another play system. I call it any triple package. It's a little more involved, and I teach this because this formation, I love it. It's what I call left rip tight end nub with trips away. I never know what we're going to get with that. Even predictable teams sometimes can fool me. So I put in a, a play package that involves all this, and we teach this early on so that I can just say, hey, left rip any five. And the quarterback knows that what his menu is. It's built in. We don't have to signal it, and he controls it because he's going to have the best view of this. Veer triple option or outside veer if the look is right. He could arc to tight end. He could do what we call bonus, and that's, again, discussion for itself. He can run zone dive to it and hand it off, or he could run midline double back to trips. Our alert system, and I'm going to go really fast, is basically putting on an adjustment scheme for one of our core plays, but not ensuring the look. So here's one where this is a 3-3 stack team, but even though it's a 3-3 stack team, I want to protect the call. I called Liz, it's actually Liz right here, not Ace, alert zero stack. This is the coach's view. I can tell that stack, but if the quarterback were to look, this is the kind of team that would probably look and mess with you. May change the view and the clock's ticking on you, not them. And so ace alert zero stack, quarterback can see that's a stack look. We're going to read the stack, arc the tackle, and pull pitch off the stack. In this case, the quarterback ended up running because they both stuck in their on the dive. Here's a look that I would call alert 10, 11 out. It's a midline double adjustment against a 4-3 clean triangle in the box, what I call it. There's the look that the coach has right here. Not very favorable. I can't really confirm the look. Again, they may change, but the quarterback has the best view of the house and he has control of the snap. That's the out scheme. The guard actually influences outside the read there. The alarm is an indicator that we put on a lot of times for passing plays. We put on a play, but we alarm it for it's a certain look in the secondary, or maybe making sure a certain guy doesn't blitz off a freeze motion to protect the play itself. This is what I called Ace Alarm 40 BB on freeze. I shared this on Telegram when we ran it years ago. And it's basically a seam route by the inside slot attached. This is the only time we could get this team to remove the free safety, who was a hammer from the middle of the field. But this formation got his ass out in the middle of the field. Excuse my language. But we went freeze to confirm that that backside rover to the offensive left wasn't blitzing. So he had two indicators on here, or he could just check to a run that we attached to it. It went on freeze. The rover didn't show signs of blitzing. Free safety was out of the middle. So we keep the play on, and we hit him right through the middle of the field for a big touchdown early in the game here. So a lot of ways. And I think, here's one with the four verticals, which I love because you're in a balanced set. Um, Coach's view, I think I can't tell. They're mixing up. This is a team that roamed around their safety. Three safety, one safety, two safeties. They didn't want to give you a clean picture of it. Definitely aren't going to let the coach do it, so I put it on the quarterback. He went freeze, and he felt like they're going to end up in one high. And we kept Viking on, and he hit the left slot, who didn't quite get to the hash because he got held, even though he got past the guy. The guy grabbed his jersey. We still smoked him up the seam for a big play. So, scheme is a play system that we put on the lineman. When we scheme, we have a few plays that we automatically scheme, but we still use the word that tells them to use the blocking scheme for the play. Sometimes they can affect the back, sometimes it can't. Mid triple is one of those plays. So when we go A0 scheme mark, that's telling linemen, hey, once quarterback identifies the front, y'all decide the blocking scheme. And it's a three choice decision there. This is slicing against the 50. I know you can't see it all that well, but we're reading that four, pitching off that end with an arc. But that puts the line. So I don't have to tag the play right. I don't have to say, hey, man, they're playing 50. I'm going to go H0 slice or zero arc slice, whatever you call it. And then they jump into something else. And our core kids have to sort it out. I put it on the kids from begin with. Another scheme system that we use is off play action pass. And this helps us slide the protection where we need to and let the backside slot, because we all want that full motion off a play action pass. But I don't know what to tell him to stay sometimes for a blitzer that's unaccounted for. So we have a way to do that. And once the quarterback calls the front, the lineman will make a call. And the slot is coming all the way around, as you can see, past the quarterback, which can help get the pull out of the secondary you want. And then that backside guy that's unaccounted for is his, and he makes that decision. He knows that by the lineman calling out the scheme protection. So play systems to me are only limited by your needs, imagination, ability to implement them. We use freeze a lot. It's always good to have, but especially with a fast official crew, limited coach vision, or versus a team that looks when you look defense. I'm gonna say this about situational football, and it's all tied to play calling. We practice 2 minute daily. We get more reps. We also get more line of scrimmage communication. And guys, for a flex ball team, it has been very, very critical for us to have had a chance or to win late game because we could execute 2 minute comfortably. We don't get into four wides. We don't get into shotgun. We don't do something different. We do our normal stuff. We just change the speed of it. But these other situations are all still within our play systems and play calling mindset. I'll say this about crossover plays that crossover offense and special teams. I call crossover plays: punt, transition, fakes, PAT, field goal transition, swing engage fakes, kickoff return. We use a lot of offensive concepts in teaching these. Sometimes offensive verbiage or coaching points or blocking rules. And anytime that you can connect more, I became a better coach. I think our staff became better coaches when we connected more to special teams, and we got more out of the special teams by connecting to the offensive principles. And I think it made us kind of use every part of the buffalo, so to speak, where we can maximize our chances to maintain possession, get first down. One of the biggest plays yeah, we had in one of several years, we finally beat a team that had beaten us several years in a row in the playoffs and regular season, was a fake punt. It was a fake punt, and then it came off a transition with our offense. Um, Closing up here, play evaluation, guys. I'm not the one to talk to about all kind of efficiency and numbers or what's a good play or not. To me, guys, is to me when a play is unsuccessful, what's the cause? What did we have a TNT issue, to be fair to the play? Did we get to the player scheme intended for the look? Was it a poor install or repetition, poor execution or effort, or just a personnel physical mismatch? I don't know that play average always gives you that. And I was more of a one play, one game evaluator in that sense, and TNTs were a big part of that, evaluating the result of plays. And I'll close with this. I think the best play in football is this one right here. You take a knee and you just kick somebody's tail. And as always, anything I have is yours. Can't thank Jacob enough and you guys for tuning in. Or if you're watching this at a later time, I hope there's at least one thing of value. I know it's a little bit fluffy, but it's all related to me, the way I view offense from the ground to taking a knee and putting your knee on the ground, everything in between. And like I said, I've spent the last few years out of coaching, but in really thinking a lot about getting better in this way. And if I did coach again, it'd have to be in the right situation with one of you guys. Maybe I could coach virtually and not have to move, but uh, it would have to be in the right situation. But if I did, it would be a heavy emphasis for me on play calling to continue to get efficient at that, being ready for all kind of weird fronts. I lived through you guys, and I got another friend that's Zach Bertrand that's on the Telegram chat. Coach over in Lafayette, Louisiana, does a great job, and he give me some looks and things that he sees, and he just kind of keeps my radar sharp, so to speak. But this has been a pleasure. It's made me better putting this together, and hopefully it brought some light to somebody for something. So I'm just under 2 minutes. So Jacob, if there's any questions, I'm gonna try to, without destroying my computer, get out of this screen. Let me
Yeah,
hit
no
stop
worries. I
share.
got a couple questions for you, and I definitely I hope to God next year Zach's schedule can line up to where I could get him on here for this because I think this would be something great to pick his brain about.
Yeah,
Um,
Zach is a great young coach. He's really a defensive guy. To see how quickly he's moved over to the offensive side and moved into a coordinator role is impressive. And he's they're going to be loaded next year. And not to put pressure on him, but he's got a lot of pieces coming back, and they were laid a good flex bone foundation with the previous coaches, and they picked up and made it even better. And the only way I feel bad for you or Mark or anybody else is I know one thing I don't miss about coaching is the constant battle defending what you do to the naysayers and the critics, and that part still pisses me off to a point of unhealthiness. So um, I hate that he has to deal with that. They made a great run this year. The team that almost won state knocked them out in the quarters, and they had them on the ropes. And if it would have been for a couple of special teams, big plays that kept them in the game in the second half, they would have just ran away with that game. But they kept them in it, and they were a different team. But is there any questions or if there's emails, guys? Y'all see I'm gonna put my email in the chat. So what would be easier is if you would shoot me if you would shoot me an email asking for this presentation, I'll get it to you. And like I said, I know it was a lot of stuff. I went really fast, but I wanted to kind of lay the groundwork of what I thought was important over the years to protecting play callers and still get to the maximum ways that you wanted to attack somebody, but not just have a pre-scripted list of plays and call them and just hope for the look that you wanted to get for that play or that scheme. And that's where I thought it helped us as a team over the years is protecting those play calls. I wouldn't have known what if you'd have meant by play systems 12 years ago, but um, using them more and more, always check plays, like Mark said earlier. But to get into all the other little things, I had to come up with words that separated them from other things like, okay, this is what this is what this is. And we just kind of came up with names that fit and collectively just started calling them play systems.
I have one question about one of the play systems. I can't remember your verbiage, but it's pretty much giving the quarterback a menu to be able to to check certain plays. How many? And I know that was a very specific package. I think you had the trips with the tight end nub on the backside that you could give
Yes.
them that menu and those options. How many packages or how many formations do you have that built into, or is that really built into like special formations?
So all that would fall under the category of play packages. And then within play packages, I had what I called play choices. And play choices in the play package mode was choices within the same basic play, genre, I guess you could say. And that was only one formation. I always loved that trips tight end formation. I thought it had a lot of run value and pass value in it, but I never could guess how people would line up. We see different things sometimes within the same game because I don't think defenses know how they want to see it because it's not always a common flex bone formation. And so I just studied, and came up with a kind of a foolproof. I thought, say, I could just call this package any, A-N-Y, any. Like if we were in left rip, I'd call any five. And that mode told the quarterback what he had available. We taught it. We got on the board, we did film, we stepped and repped it. And then sometimes against our own defense, I wouldn't know what they're going to get in and spring or whatever. I say, hey, let's go left rip any five. A lot of times we would do it on freeze. Freeze really helps confirm the look. And then based off of that, his mind's going through that menu and he's just looking at that look and he knows what he has available. And so that was a easier, puts a little more pressure on the quarterback because in that formation, sometimes that tight end side may be to the opposite side of the field. You can't see cleanly what's over there. You might can between plays, but that doesn't help you at the time of the play call, right? So that was one. The Rex and Leo tight end overset or right and left was best 4 and 5. That was a two-play choice where he could go regular veer triple, depending on the look, or he could go outside veer, depending on the look, and he had one indicator on that. So we had about, I would say, three or four of those diehard built-in play packages, and like I said, most of it involved some form of veer triple, but also maybe a midline alternate as well. But whatever we built in and called it that, that package was taught from the beginning, and that was always available.
All right, my last question for you, because I know I picked your brain a whole lot, but when it came to play calling, I know that we share in similar philosophies that I like to have a lot of answers and options, not necessarily getting to the expensive side of things, but cheaper plays that you can add on that can complement and add on to what you've already built on. Do you have like built into your head like an if then system, or is it pretty much week by week? We're going to be, we're expecting this look. So this is why I have in the back of my head, these are my top five plays. Or how do you, I would guess, organize everything to figure out when you're going to call where?
That's a great question, and I wish I could give you a more educated answer of a true if then like I've seen before. I guess I never wanted to lock myself into if the end squeezing you're doing this because if your answer from an end squeezing is to do this, well, you may have another problem on the perimeter that goes along with that end squeezing. So I would kind of have like Paul Harvey. I'm aging myself here, but Mark knows what I'm talking about. Like Paul Harvey used to say at the end of his radio segment, and now for the rest of the story, I'd have to know the whole picture. I'd have to know the rest of the story. But in general, yes, if you give me one isolated thing of what a defense is doing, I can certainly tell you what our thoughts were on that, as long as there wasn't another pending problem on top of that. So the initial problem, yes. Is there a secondary problem that may guide your thoughts where otherwise? But yeah, I think we're all pretty familiar. If an end is squeezing hard in the option game, yeah, then you probably want to just some type of double option, take the read out because he's just closing hard. It's still a little bit of a guess. That's what I would call one of those reactionary calls because you're calling it based on his reaction. He may not do it that play. I've seen video, watching film sometimes with the Harding guys up at their clinic. It was like, man, they call that little G scheme. I'm not sure what their number is. I don't use the Harding verbiage and numbers, but where they X block it and it's just a flash fake and they're on the perimeter. I love that when you get a five tech that's squeezing hard. But on that one play, if he doesn't do it, then your quarterback probably just going to have to tuck it and follow the fullback. Um, but I think we all have some thoughts on reactionary plays, whether it's rocket to a hard squeezing in or this or that. And to say I have a nice formulated list, I'd be lying to you if I said that, unfortunately. If you and I put on film right now, that's how my mind works. I'm visual. I've got to see it. Once I see it, and I wanted our coaches to be that way. Even if they had to write things out, that's fine. But let's make sure we're seeing and learning how to scan. putting your eyes in the right place. And I didn't want to say something about that tonight as well, looking at from a coordinator's point of view in the press box is training your eyes. Because somebody asked me this question one time and I didn't know how to answer it. I had to stop and think. I mean, you just do it naturally once you've done it, but from inside out, where do you put your eyes? Identify the front, then you scan the perimeter, then you see from front to back, all before the ball snap. Then as that ball snap, how your eyes are scanning that play to see what you want to see and gather information. And that's what you're doing during a play call is gathering information and not just watching the ball like a fan. And that's what coaches have to be careful of because huddle sideline and all that is a great tool. But in the middle of a series, I don't know how helpful it can always be. You gotta have gathered information instantly for a possession. At least that's the way I wanted us to be. Like, I don't want to wait till the end of this possession and say, hey, they're doing this. We can get them on that. I want to know now. But we have to say it the right way. And you can't be a big cheerleader, rah-rah, and chase ghost kind of guy, and be panicky on the headsets. There's got to be good communication. I think all that takes practice. I really do.